Hello, hello to all my change makers. Welcome back to another week of amazing interviews with people from all over the world who are just changing things in so many positive and wonderful ways. And today we are here, and please remind me, Miss Lorna, are you in Canada? I think that's correct. Yes.
It is correct. Yes, Shan.
All right. So we have Miss Lorna
Mhm.
Gale from Canada here today. And my dear, I know you are probably one of the more unique souls that I've had the opportunity to meet in a
Mm.
while. So please tell people a little bit about what you do and how in the world you are an important part of creating peace on earth.
Mm. Wonderful. Thank you, Cheyenne. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I work in the realm of sexuality and spirituality and wholeness and peace within. And if you had asked me 15 years ago, would I have been here? Not on your life. I would have been as surprised as you would have been. Um, when I look at myself, having grown up in a very conservative religious home, the aspect of connecting sexuality and spirituality didn't fit into what I've now come to not only experience, but what I get to teach. This way of really supporting people of what I say coming back home, reconnecting to their bodies and reconnecting to their sexuality. And I use three different analogies, if you will, that talk about that. One is that of mirrors, that what we see in the mirror is actually the opposite of what is. So to be able to take our life around us, what we've experienced is, what would it be like if we looked in the opposite? And in that case, an example of that was I was taught, save yourself for marriage. And I did. I was married at the age of 18. And in that time, I realized I was very, very disconnected from my sexuality. And it wasn't until 25 years later that I started my own journey of finding out what is it like to be connected to my own sexuality. And that's where actually interesting, Cheyenne, I literally met myself in the mirror, not only literally but and figuratively, but with the mirror right there as well. But what I found was that when I started to try to connect to myself as a sexual being, that I was met with shame, disgust, self loathing, and it even took me to the point of existential shame, the shame that I even existed. And when I got down to that point, that's where it was like I had what I call my midlife sexual awakening. I was awakened to this isn't wrong and bad and dirty like I've been taught. It's so good and pure and right. And and I know that there are many people who live in this place of um, disconnection within their bodies with their sexuality because such a there's so many things that we're taught about sexuality, about who we are, who we can be, who we shouldn't be. And this goes about women and men. Women who have sex, who love sex, are there's labels for that. Men who love sex, there's that. And but there's not this sense of everybody being wholly complete within themselves and what I call sexual freedom. And it's actually interesting. 15 years ago, a quote by Audre Lorde, I heard it and it resonated so deeply. And it's one that I have used as a foundation for my work as well, my own experiences. We tend to think of the erotic as a quick, tantalizing sexual arousal. I think of the erotic as that deepest life force energy that moves us in a fundamental way.
Mm. Wow. That's a powerful saying for sure. Wow.
It is. It, it is. It is. And this idea, we come from sex. And so why would our essence of sexuality be all of a sudden shamed and somehow wrong? And so it's no wonder I've often thought it's no wonder that people feel disconnected from their sexuality because, well, what's wrong with me? It's kind of like, no. So that's where in some ways that becomes from the very beginning. The second thing is about movies or stories, that idea of the stories about if we are whole and complete within, that peace within, the Garden of Eden, if you will, within, there's the harmony. But we're taught to look outside of ourselves for authority, permission, pleasure, partner, validation. And so here's this journey to always come back. And here we are when we can really connect back to our bodies, to our own sexuality, to be at peace there. to, instead of necessarily even looking outside for a lover or a partner, is can I be my own best lover? Can I be connected to my own sexuality, and how to use that as a way of expression in a consensual way and in an age appropriate way as we grow up.
Wow. Sounds like there's some strong connections to what you're talking about with just in general a human's sense of self-worth. Is that in the right vein of what you're telling us?
It is. It is very much so. From my experience, from what keeps getting shown to me over and over in multiple ways through energetically as well as through client sessions, absolutely. I find that women come to me saying, I want to connect my body and my sexuality. Men arrive to me and saying, I want to be the best that I can be for my partner, my wife, my girlfriend. So it's really looking at how we're each coming from this place where in our world where we've lived, Cheyenne, is we were talking about this even before we came on live, is that aspect of in our current male female dynamics that happen, is that nobody's winning when there's this sense of disharmony in any body. It shows up and ripples out into the world. So this idea of, and as I talk about as a sex, so I'm a somatic sexologist, and also an intuitive energy healer, a poet, and a sex and spirit alchemist of the feminine led life. And I look at this aspect of feminine leading when women can arise and the feminine can arise, the masculine now has this place. Oh, now I know where I fit in. Now I know where I can bring my gifts, my talents, my strengths to be able to support this vision that lives and breathes and is for all of us, that is for the benefit of all. So that's a bit of what I do.
Wow. And again, I can sense the power behind it. But, and I thank you for saying those words again, because those were some of those that I'm going, what does that mean? So, what
Mm.
on earth does somatic sexologist mean?
Great, great. Well, if you look at a biologist, sexologist, psychologist, it's the study of. So the study of sex, learning about sex through somatic, the body. So instead of
Okay.
just reading about somebody else's, okay, here's a book, or I'll watch something and find out facts, we learn about sexuality through our own bodies, through the felt experience. And it's actually interesting, and certainly in a world right now where we're verbally and openly talking about trauma, is that anytime there is anything that shuts us down from our true essence, our natural ability to be how we are, that that's a trauma. It doesn't have to be huge. Sometimes it can be just little by little by little. And one of the examples that I love to give is that of consent. I call it the compass of consent, and that is actually a feeling. So a little child comes in to the world just taking in things through their senses, the sight being the last one, but taking in things through the senses. And little by little, we start to give labels to things. Here's mommy, here's daddy, based on the genitals. Oh, it's a boy or a girl. Here's the cup, here's the dog, here's the giraffe, soon we even start to talk about the feelings. You're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling sad. But actually, all of those things are simply labels. They
Mhm.
take us out of a direct experience of what's happening in our body. So when we are feeling a certain thing, a little child just innately gets up and, maybe goes and gets something to eat, or, cries and says, I want something to eat. They get up, they're busy playing, and all of a sudden they get this urge to and go read a book. So they're going by that inner compass within, that innate thing that's right there, which we all come with. But interestingly, that often, I would say probably most often, always, with some of us as we go along, is that gets covered over by different things. And I'll give an example. And I teach this when I take people through the compass of consent experience over 3 sessions and sometimes longer. But the example that I give is the little child's there reading their book, and mom and dad say, come and say goodbye to grandma. Grandma's leaving. She lives a long ways away. It's time for her to go. And I can say this as a grandma, um, And as a grandma, I know what this is like, and I actually had opportunity to live this, put this into practice. And come and say goodbye to grandma. Come and say goodbye to grandma. I don't want to. Come, put your things down. You can come back to that later. Grandma's more important right now. You need to put your things down and say goodbye to grandma. I don't want to. Put your things down. Look at grandma. She looks so sad. You don't want grandma to feel sad, do you? You don't want her. She might even think you don't love her. And you know what? Grandma's old. She lives a long ways away. She might die before you have a chance to say goodbye to her again. So those are things that, as I tell that story, that most people can relate to one or more of those things at various ages, of how we've been taught that what we are doing is less important than somebody else, that we are responsible for somebody else's emotional well-being, and that we now, if something happens to somebody else, we get to carry the brunt and the guilt of somehow if we had done something different. And none of those are real. But what that starts to do, exactly. And when we can honor a child, when we can honor ourselves, when we're feeling that innate interest to do something or to not do something, to honor that. Because what we're doing, as I say, that what we feel inside, and when it feels inside, when you heard those, oh, right, that's what is taking away, taking us off of our center. And it's as if we need to give to somebody else, or we need to take on the burden of somebody else, and it overshadows, covers over with guilt, shame, all those different pieces that somehow who we are and how we are exactly right now is not good enough, not worthy. It has to be, should be different. And so this journey about bringing people back into their bodies to be able to find that compass, to feel that, so they can move and live from there, whether it's making purchases, deciding what movie to go to, what to have for dinner, or how to be, if involved in any sexual intimate experiences.
Wow. Yeah. Because I mean, anything relating to emotion and relating to sex in general, I mean, it's all energy based, right? I remember a chiropractor saying, well, emotion just means energy in motion. I'm like, oh, except when we stop it, right?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
that's a huge part. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that there's a lot of this is playing a role in what many people would refer to, especially in the U.S. and probably a whole lot of other places. But we have a real mental wellness crisis going on all across the
Mm-hmm.
planet, and this
Mm-hmm.
this is a component to it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, was there a defining moment in your life that led you down this path?
There were. There were actually two different things that brought me, I would say, the predominant ones that stand in line right now. One of them was 25 years ago. I had the gift. My body started to shut me down as a teacher. I started to get laryngitis repeatedly. And so I was off. And that what became my journey, of my spiritual journey, that really started to open my eyes to different ways of being that I had grown up with. And so that started my spiritual journey. When I was married, had saved myself for marriage. I was a good girl. I had done that, and I realized over the years how disconnected I was from my sexuality. And yeah, it was, and I think probably a lot of this idea of, it's the idea of orgasm. You almost cannot speak about sexuality without thinking about somebody else and about orgasm. So I'm going to just call it out, in the sense that that's one part of it, but that's even, it's such a, Cheyenne, there's that part of us that can actually start to show us where we're actually shut down, or where we are disconnected from. Not about the goal, but how we are disconnected from our ability to be all that we are. So for me, my first orgasm was at the age of 42. That's how disconnected I was from my sexuality. I gave birth to two beautiful children, so I was able to have sex, did that, but I was very disconnected. So when my girls were out of the home, It was my turn. I needed to go and find out, who am I as a sexual erotic being? Took retreats, workshops, trainings, all kinds of things. And I literally, in one of the trainings, I met myself in the mirror, literally and figuratively. And in that time, I was like, this is gross. This is disgusting. The self-loathing came up. And it even took me to that point of existential shame, the shame that I even existed.
Mm, mm, mm.
And, with the tears running down my face day after day as I stayed into this, let myself feel into the depths of those things, it was like, wow, I had no idea those were there. Because we just sort of go on day to day, and that's sort of our discomfort within our bodies, that lack of peace and harmony in our body, we just get used to it. But I was confronted with it. I was to face it. I chose to stay with it and face it. And when I could get down to that deepest level of existential shame, the shame that I even existed,
Mm,
that's
mm.
where I could touch into there, and all of a sudden the lights, the inner light came on, and it was like, this is so good and pure and right. It's not dirty and wrong and shameful like we've been taught. And that was my instantaneous 180-degree turnaround, where all of a sudden life was erotic. I could see things from whole different things, the aliveness of life, to see the shapes of the curves, like the woman, to see them in the curves of our plants and our trees, to see the phalluses in our trees, to see life is erotic. It's all around us. Why would we come from sex? Why would it be that somehow there's something wrong with us? No. And so hidden in plain view, when we have this connection to our body and our sexuality, is this also this connection to that life force energy that we are, that is us. And so to be able to, then it just became this natural thing to take my love and gift of teaching from the school system and in energy work now into the sexual erotic realm of things, to support other people in reconnecting to their bodies, and bring now the spiritual in there. Let's bring sex and spirit back together. Let's come back home to our bodies and have peace and harmony here.
Wow. That is totally fascinating. And I thank you for being willing to share at that level.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious for, do you have any big visions for the future in terms of what you'd like to be doing, or how you'd like to be
Mm.
working with other people? I mean, I know a lot of us change makers, we have big visions and we don't always speak about them. But my goal is to connect people together so that they can
Mm.
collaborate. So anything you
Ah,
care to share?
thank you. I do have a vision, and thank you for speaking that. I do have a vision of a place of what I call retreat and training centers, where people can come in and um, it, where people can come in and reconnect to their bodies. They can connect to their sexuality, to be in circle, to be in retreats. There's a power in communal living, and what came through me, a body of work that came through me at my time of my midlife sexual awakening, is looking at the way we look at, view, experience food. What if we did sexuality in the same way? What if we approach sexuality as a natural, nourishing, um, life-giving essence of who we are, and had came to our sexuality in that way as well? It would do a whole lot different, in what we experience. And so I have this place to be able to create retreats where people, and again, with food, is we talk about sex, we talk about food. We have food classes, we have online things, cooking classes together. What would it be like if we learned about sexuality by even discussing it, talking about it, bringing it out of the shadows, bringing it out of the closet, and saying, we are sexual erotic beings. Can we talk about it and acknowledge that what I am feeling, what you might be wanting to explore, what you're interested in, is, let's look at that. What that might that be? And to be able to really look at the naturalness of sexuality and let that be a part of our natural expression of who we are in life. And so having those places where I can bring communities in to talk about, to have healings that happen around that, reconnect the sexuality piece and the spirituality. And yeah, so that's one of my big visions. And it feels like I have a global movement that I'm leading, and that is, just, the wind is starting to be here under the wings. It's time.
I get that. I get that. If we're ever going to have peace on earth, it has to start within ourselves. So thank you
Yeah.
for being part of what I call the super puzzle that allows peace on earth to begin to start to bubble up and expand, because obviously you are part of some important ripples that are just designed
Mm,
to ripple out across the planet. So
mm,
thank you for all of that. So please tell people, how in the world could they find you if they wanted to learn more?
Thank you, Shan. I am on Facebook, Lorna Gale. I'm on LinkedIn as well, though not as much right now. And I do have a private Facebook group for women. It's called Reclaiming Eden. Is going to be taking flight in a little bit different way over the next little bit. So you can watch for that, but that's where it'll be right now. And yeah, I'm in Bump. I'm in Bump Global. So I'm there. So those are some of the places that I can be connected.
Awesome. Well, we definitely encourage people to listen and learn from you. And if they're so inspired to get involved in your group, then we definitely invite people to consider that as well. So I know you've got other places to be today and things to do. So please tell us, do you have any final words of wisdom you would like to leave people with?
hmm I would say feel. Take the time in the shower when you're showering and shampooing your hair to slow down and let yourself feel the sensation. We get so busy, and that's one of our ways of not feeling. Let yourself feel the physical sensation when things come up as emotions, whether felt as irritation or a certain emotion you might label, is give yourself the gift of feeling it. Just be with it and feel it.
Wise words from a wise woman. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for being with
Thank
us
you.
today, Lorna, and thank all of our change makers for tuning in and perhaps learning about things that you haven't had a chance to learn about before. So we will see you guys again in the next interview. In the meantime, have a marvelous and exciting day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cheyenne. Thank you.